Hi everyone. Ren Zhiqiang is not your typical Chinese poverty tycoon. A son of the red aristocracy and a beneficiary of the nexus between money and power in China, you think that somebody with that kind of background would have little incentive in challenging China's political system. Alas, that's not the case, and that is why I think his case is particularly revealing about China's political system and deserves our attention. Ren is dubbed as the Big Cannon by Chinese netizens for his infamous, blatant, and blistering criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. But it seems that the road has run out for the Big Cannon. On Tuesday last week, September the 22nd, a court in Beijing sentenced Ren to 18 years in jail on the charges of embezzlement, taking bribes, misusing public funds, and abusing his power during his time as an executive of the Huayuan Group, which is a state-owned property conglomerate. His fate was actually sealed back in July when he was kicked out of the party, stripped of his membership for stepping out of line politically. To understand why, we'll have to go back to March, when an essay attributed to Ren appeared on the Chinese internet. That essay was a blistering criticism of Xi Jinping's leadership, as well as the Chinese Communist Party system, for failing the Chinese people at the height of the COVID crisis. Ren directed his sharpest criticism at Xi Jinping, calling him an emperor without clothing on, blatantly lying to the people. Ren referred to the overthrown Romanian leader Nicolae Ceausescu, who at the time when the tide was turning still thought that his people would believe him, and the implication was that the tide was turning against Xi Jinping. But Ren's criticism went beyond Xi personally, and Ren highlighted a fundamental contradiction in China's political system, and that is there's a lack of oversight in the one-party system, there's a lack of rule of law, and that the problems, quoting from his essay, comes from the inevitable result of a relationship of responsibilities that puts the duties of the party before duties of the people. And that is to say, politicians and public officials put the party's interest before the interests of the people. Similar lines of critique have been made by a number of people, including Tsinghua University professor Xu Zhangren, who was fired from his position and put on surveillance for speaking out. Chen Qiushi, a citizen journalist who went to Wuhan to find out what was actually happening on the ground there, he was disappeared, and we still don't know where he is. And Cai Xia, a professor from the Chinese Communist Party school, who spoke out against Xi's centralization of power. So Ren adds his name to a growing list of critics that are being punished for daring to speak out at a time when the party under Xi is trying to centralize power and reassert its supremacy in Chinese society. This episode actually shows a number of different things that are quite interesting. One of the interesting things is that it tells us that red aristocracy is no longer safe from the wrath of Xi Jinping. So in the past, if you come from the Chinese political elite, then you have a more leeway to criticize the system, because the assumption is that being the most direct beneficiaries of that system, you're the least likely to try to overthrow that system. So by punishing Ren so heavily, Xi Jinping is sending a message that he is not going to put up with challenges to his political power. There are also three implications for the centralization of party under Xi more broadly. So the first one is that it increases elite insecurity, right? And insecurity historically drives the endemic and ruthless way that political competition is carried out in the party. So in the long run, it makes the system more volatile. The second one is that it makes it less likely that advisors and other political leaders will come out and offer advice on policies that Xi Jinping has already set. Right, so across the board, including U.S.-China relations, on Taiwan, on Hong Kong, on Xinjiang. So those close to Xi are less likely to speak their mind and offer country advice. And the third one is that local cadres are going to be more conservative, simply because the risk is now so high that they would prefer to tick boxes from the central directives coming from Beijing rather than actually solve problems on the ground.